everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric here with AJ in Medellin, Colombia. This is episode number 143 and today is Wednesday, October 5th. We are going to be diving into some new information about the United Mileage Plus program. For those of you guys who have been listening, today is the last day to book under the old rules. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today reviewing a couple of things about the rules for those of you who are making last minute bookings today, but also diving into what is changing and what you're going to be able to do to take advantage of Mileage Plus going forward. We've also got a bunch of news and updates from around the points and miles world, and we got kind of a new structure here.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be a little bit more organized going forward.
Yeah, I think this will help us organize better content for the listeners and also make it easier for the listeners to consume the content and also have a little bit more predictability as far as the episodes go. So what we've got here, and all these segments will not be on every single episode because sometimes it's just not news and we don't want to waste your time. So, for example, the segments we're going to be featuring on this show in the news will be credit card offers, opportunities to buy, share, transfer miles, award availability we have found that excites us, stuff that is not worth mentioning so you don't waste your time, crazy people and random news. There's always something crazy going on that's kind of fun to share with somebody doing something stupid on a plane or in travel. And then some reminders, time-sensitive stuff to give you guys a little tap on the shoulder about some opportunities that are going away.
Awesome. So all of the links and notes from today's show are going to be at abroaders.com/New United. All right, so let's jump into the first section with some credit card offers. We had a couple of really good new offers come out since we last met with you guys, and so we wanted to share a couple of changes. I think the biggest one is probably the Delta limited time offer. So this is for the Amex co-branded Delta cards. There's two different versions. One's the gold card and one's the platinum card, and both of those have increased the sign-up bonus. Typically, those bonuses hang around 30,000 points. And for a limited time, the Delta Platinum is at 70,000 points for 3,000 spend in 90 days. And the personal version is at 50,000 points for 2,000 spend in 90 days. So a couple of things to keep in mind here. There's actually a business and a personal version of both cards. And so we're going to have the link, and both business and personal went up. So this is kind of exciting in that you can potentially get up to 140,000 miles if you haven't had these cards before. Now, the big difference between the two cards is that, at least with this sign-up offer, the Delta Gold card has the $95 annual fee waived for the first year, which is always a nice thing. You don't have to pay any cash up front to get a hold of those miles. However, the Platinum card has a $195 fee that is not waived for the first year, but you're getting an extra 20,000 points when you sign up. And so just that difference from 50 to 70,000 easily pays for that first year annual fee. I think, probably the best takeaway here is, like, most people are probably going to want to go with the personal cards, and you can't get them both. So you need to pick which one. I would say if the $195 isn't a huge deal to be able to pay up front, those extra Delta miles are probably worth $300 to $400 at the worst. Maybe as much as $500. So it's definitely worth considering doing that one. The key thing about being eligible is just you can't have had the product in the past. So if you already had the Delta Gold personal card, look at doing the Delta Platinum. If you've already had the Delta Platinum, you can look at doing the Delta Gold.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of this summer when we sent out an email to our list about the Delta Gold being at 50 back then. It was a limited time thing. So for those people that got that 50K back then, good on you. That's exactly how you play the game. Get the bonuses when they're at their height. So for people that have not gotten these cards, this is really the time to take action and go for them.
Yep, and if you did get signed up for the 50,000 back in May with the gold card, I think the platinum card wasn't particularly special at that point. I think it had just sort of the standard
I think it was
bonus.
the same, yeah.
So if you didn't get the platinum back then, you are eligible for that one. Definitely a good opportunity, and I hope some of you guys are able to jump on that.
The final offer we've got here is the SPG Amex Business Card, and that offer has changed from 25,000 SPG points to 2 free nights. So that's at category 1 through 5 in any SPG property. So I guess the takeaways about this bonus compared to what it was is the good thing is it's simple to redeem. You got your 2 free nights. You know the limitations. You can go up to a category 5 hotel. However, the thing that is not as good is you don't have the flexibility. You're locked in on 2 free nights. You can't transfer those to an airline program. You can't be more creative. But it really is much more simple to get value out of that bonus with 2 free nights than it is with points.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway here is if you're very confident that you're going to be using your Starwood points to book hotels, this is a great offer. If you're not totally sure and you might consider doing the airline, the 25K bonus is probably better, and you maybe want to wait and do that when it comes back out. The thing is, like, you know, these I don't like SPG so much for hotel nights. I mean, they've got some really nice properties, but they're just such valuable points as airline miles. The other thing to keep in mind is if you just took a straight 25,000 point bonus, at category 5, it's maybe worth 30,000 points, right? So 2 nights at category 5 is going to be like maybe maximum 20,000 points a night. So yeah, you're getting 40,000 points worth of stays there if you get the top level category. But you know, I think I'd rather have the 25K. So word of caution.
Man, me too. I definitely have the 25K, but it also depends on your travel profile. Where like 2 nights at a hotel, that doesn't excite me because when I go somewhere, I'm there longer than 2 days. So it's going to be like, okay, then what? Now I'm going to go pay money for an Airbnb place. So I guess it depends on your travel profile.
I've actually got one more card I just want to throw in before we get out of this section, and that is the no-fee Hilton card from Citibank. And so this is kind of a nice offer because typically the sign-up bonus is around $30,000, and it's up to $75,000. So this is one of those cards that's great if you can pick up the bonus once when it's at a relative high and know that you're never going to have to cancel that card or do any negotiations because it's free forever. So it's one of those cards that can kind of anchor your credit score. Besides the sign-up bonus, though, there's nothing really that exciting. You do get automatic silver status, which is not that awesome with Hilton. And I would say the bonus is probably worth $300 to $500. So folks that are kind of maxed out and have gone through most of the airline cards, this could be a good opportunity. Everybody else, probably one to wait on.
Do we know what the minimum spend on that is?
This is a $2,000 minimum spend for this offer. So you've got not too aggressive of a spending requirement to be able to get the bonus points. And you know, depending on where you end up with Hilton, they've got a lot of properties that are kind of higher in price. So I would say the best value for this offer is if you're looking at some of the mid-tier hotels. There are some really nice deals to be had in the 15,000 to 25,000 points a night. So you could get 2 or 3 nights of a sort of towards the top of the line, or there's also the hotels that are a little bit cheaper in points, and you can potentially stretch this bonus into 4 or 5 nights.
All right, well, that wraps up the credit card offer section. Now let's move into the buy, share, and transfer miles. So the first one we've got here is there's a bonus with Amex membership rewards and Alitalia's program. So what we've got here is a 25% bonus. So you're going to get an extra 25% points when you move your Amex points to Alitalia. And this goes through, October 31st?
Yep. Yeah. And this is hard coded at the Amex membership rewards website. So basically you transfer 10,000 American Express points and you're going to get an extra 2,500. So it's a nice deal, although there are a couple things to keep in mind with Alitalia. Number one, unlike most transfer partners, this is not an instant transfer. It's close. It's not one you're going to have to wait a lot of time, but in our experimentation so far, we've been seeing about 24 hours is roughly the transfer time. The second thing is that Alitalia requires round trip if you're using any partner airlines. So they're a SkyTeam member, so that means Delta is probably going to be your main partner. If you're able to book all on Alitalia flights, you can do one ways, but as soon as you include a flight on Delta, it's going to require you to do that round trip. So bear that in mind. And then I think the last thing to be aware of here is that the fuel surcharges are pretty high. So this is not a program that you're going to look at economy generally, because the taxes and fees are going to be almost as high as
this will be one of those situations where you spend $600 on a great business class class flight.
Exactly. Yep. So there's definitely some opportunities here. Just for point of reference, U.S. to Europe in business class is only 84,000 or 80,000 round trip. So including the transfer bonus, it's only going to cost you 64,000 Amex points. That's a really good deal for business class. Now, again, you're probably going to pay $600 or so for taxes and fees. But if you consider that Delta charges 80,000 each way to Europe for lots of their business class flights, this is a pretty good deal. So definitely worth considering. One last thing about Alitalia is that for whatever reason, they have this strange expiration of their award chart. And that's coming up actually pretty quick. So on October 14th, they're going to be changing their award chart. It means some of the mileage amounts may be changing. They do this kind of regularly, so it's like a weird system where they just have sort of announced devaluations or announced award chart changes, but they don't tell you what's coming. So we're going to link in the show notes to a post that's got some really good details and some good ideas about how you could use those Alitalia miles. And just keep in mind that if you're depending on one of those prices in terms of points, you may want to book before the 14th.
All right, the next one we've got here is an interesting program that we touched on a little while ago, and it's Etihad. So we've got a 20% bonus for transferring your points to Etihad. They've got a handful of transfer partners. Some examples would be Citi, Amex. The hotels can actually transfer. The hotel points can transfer to Etihad. Most of the hotel ones do. I think Hilton transfers there. And this is really interesting because of the way Etihad has their award pricing, where Etihad's award pricing depends on the partner. So depending on which one of the partners you're booking with, you can get some really good deals. And one that just, it seems too good to be true, I would like to call somebody, price it out, and actually confirm for myself, is the Brussels to JFK on Brussels in business class for 36,000 points round trip. So when you consider the transfer bonus, it's like about 30,000 points for a round trip to Europe in a really nice business class.
Yep. And the challenge here, so one of the things that's not fun about Etihad is that you have to book any of these partner tickets by phone. So if you're using the Brussels Airlines chart, there's amazing points valuation, like really good deal in terms of the number of points required. But keep in mind, you are going to have to call to book that. The other partner that's probably worth taking a look at is American Airlines. They've got a pretty competitive, it's not nearly as good as that Brussels one that you just mentioned, but there are some good rates there. We will link to the Etihad award chart, both for Brussels Airlines and American, as well as just a spot where you can find out the other partners. And I would also recommend, we did an in-depth show on Etihad last time there was a transfer bonus, and that's episode 121. So if you just head over to the Abroaders website and check out the podcast tab at the top, you can find that episode. We've got the show notes and audio available. So if you really want to take a look at this and start plotting out ways you might be able to use this 20% transfer bonus, that's a good place to start to get some inspiration.
Yeah, I think it was a really good episode. I mean, we learned a lot when we were doing the research for that episode because it's an obscure thing. So yeah, definitely check that out.
One last thing about this particular transfer bonus is this is one that is sort of being awarded by Etihad itself. And so if you go to Citi or Amex, for example, and go to transfer to Etihad, you're not going to see that 20% bonus reflected on the American Express website or the Citi website. So Amex, as far as they're concerned, if you transfer 20,000 miles from Amex, you're going to get 20,000 with Etihad. So it's Etihad that's actually tacking on the extra 20% at the end. So just to be aware, if you go to the transfer page and don't see the bonus, it's because it's on the Etihad side. So once you make that transfer from Citi or Amex, you'll see those points get posted by Etihad after the fact. So don't be concerned if you don't see anything about the 20% bonus on the bank websites. That's going to be something that happens on the Etihad side. All right, so next up, we wanted to give you guys a heads up about some award availability that we came across. So the first one is with Delta Airlines, and this is kind of interesting news because this happens a lot when new routes open up. So Delta made a decision just recently to transfer a bunch of their flights from Narita, which is the airport that's a bit outside of Tokyo, to Haneda, which is the downtown airport. So number one, it's actually a much better place if you actually plan to go to Tokyo. It's way easier to get to the city. But the Minneapolis-St. Paul MSP to Haneda route with Delta is wide open in business class. And we took a look and spot checked this in November, December, even as far as April of next year. And there are a bunch of business class seats available. And so this is potentially a good opportunity if you're trying to get get to East Asia with a larger group. Most of these dates that we looked at had at least 6 business class seats. Some of them had 10. So this is a really good opportunity. Pretty niche, sort of specific, but keep in mind there's lots of ways to connect from Japan to other places in Asia. Obviously, Tokyo is one of the global hubs. So even if you're not necessarily interested in staying in Tokyo, this could be a great way to get across the ocean.
Yeah, absolutely. The final award availability alert we want to give you guys is a really exciting one, and it is for Rio Carnival. So what that pretty much means is from the U.S. to Rio during the Carnival dates, getting there before Carnival and leaving a little bit after Carnival is really, really open. I wouldn't say it's completely wide open with every single day, but all 3 major U.S. programs have saver availability. So that means you can get pretty much from anywhere in the U.S. to Rio for 30,000 points one way, 60,000 round trip. And this is a really good deal because the flight volume, if you try to buy like a flight from, say, I don't know, Salvador, Brazil to Rio during this, or buy a flight anywhere into Rio during Carnival, it's really expensive. Cheapest one I found on a spot check was a little over $1,000. So really good value, really exciting that you could use. I think it's always exciting when you can use points and get a really good deal on somewhere for a really big event. That's pretty cool because, the holidays can be kind of tricky. So definitely exciting if you're looking at Rio Carnival. Go ahead and book your flight.
Yeah, I have to say, like that's one of the things that's still kind of perplexing. It's a nice opportunity with miles because we experienced this with Oktoberfest a couple of years ago, where we were able to get a flight into Munich. For whatever reason, the people in charge of pricing paid flights are all over these kinds of events. They know when there's a big conference or when there's Carnival or something, obviously they increase the prices. But for whatever reason, they haven't made any adjustments on the mileage tickets for Rio. So definitely worth checking that out. Lots of origins in the U.S., lots of different hubs that have availability. And keep in mind, you definitely do need to have a visa if you're a U.S. citizen traveling to Brazil. Don't make that mistake. Brazil is not known for being super fast with the processing.
It takes a little bit of time. That's something where you gotta deal with the Brazilian consulate. If you're in the Midwest like us, I had to do that through Chicago, I believe, the Chicago Passport Agency there. But yeah, do that ahead of time.
Bottom line, give yourself, to be safe and comfortable and not having to pay any expedite fees, give yourself a month and a half, 2 months. Worst case scenario, if you're really hustling, you can probably still get it done in January and have enough time.
Oh man, I'd say take it a step further. If you know you're going to go to Brazil anytime soon, just get the damn thing done. Get the passport ready to go because it's valid for 10 years. So it's a really good value when you consider it's valid for so long.
All right, so next up, just want to run through a couple of quick links and opportunities. So these are these are things that we're not going to dive into, but I think these are at least worth considering. So one of them is that there is a $5 discount on $100 or more of Visa, MasterCard, or Amex gift cards at Meijer. I know that's a big thing in Michigan. I don't know how global they are across the U.S., but Meijer is like a big chain grocery store, kind of like Walmart. And so if you are doing a little bit of manufactured spending or trying to top up to hit your sign-up bonus, that could be a good offer. We've got a link. That one does expire today. So if you're going to go grab some gift cards, now is the time. The second one goes back to some stuff we were talking about last week, and that is there's free United status for SPG and Marriott Platinums. So if you want to know more about the merger between SPG and Marriott, check out last week's episode. In the show notes for this one, we are going to have the link that explains how you connect your accounts. And if you're a Marriott Platinum, you get automatic silver status with United. And if you're an SPG Platinum, all you have to do is connect your accounts and suddenly you're a Marriott Platinum.
Simple enough. All right, well, that's it for the not mentioning. And in the spirit of not mentioning it, let's move on. So in the random news, we've got self-driving taxis in Singapore. And no, this is not Uber. This is a startup that's based out of what I read was Cambridge in Singapore, called Nutonomy. And so they've got some self-driving taxis in the business district in Singapore. So this is pretty interesting. And they claim that they're going to have a fleet of 1,000 self-driving taxis by 2018. Would you get into that taxi?
Man, that's a really good question. I'm all about progress, want to be one of those early adopters, but I do think I'd be a little bit concerned. I guess if you're in the business district, you're probably not on the freeway going super fast, so a little fender bender, I guess, just buckle up. But it'd be interesting to see. It's kind of it's surprising to me that Asia is beating the U.S. to this, at least in the early stages here. I'm excited to see that getting tested out.
I don't know if that surprises me as much because it's not about the technology. it's about the law. It's about the legislation. And I feel like we're pretty good in the United States of clogging up stuff that may disrupt other things, other lobbies. So Singapore being a smaller, a little bit more, I don't know. I feel like
a little more autonomy. Well, anyways, I would love to hear from you guys if anybody is visiting Singapore and has a chance to check that out. We'll keep you posted on any new self-driving.
I think I would absolutely do it. Based on some of the taxi rides I'd have, I'd take the self-driving taxi versus all of my taxi experiences I've had.
Trust the machine over the guy that's been driving for 18 hours straight?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so last up, we've got one reminder for you guys. The 50% transfer bonus from American Express to British Airways ends on October 10th, so you've got 5 more days. So remember, for a limited time, 250 Amex points convert to 300 British Airways. Usually it's 200 British Airways points. So the normal transfer ratio is a little bit less than 1-to-1. Now we're a little bit better than 1-to-1. I think I'm going to make a transfer and probably move 20 or 30,000 just to take advantage. We're going to use those British Airways points.
Yeah, eventually they'll be used for sure.
All right, so let's get into the core content. Before we talk about United, we have one listener question that we wanted to share with you guys. So Fabio wrote in asking about his Starwood Preferred guest points. And so he's got a pretty big balance, more than 100,000 points. And fortunately, those points are set to expire sometime close to the end of the year. So he's got a couple of months. And he was asking about how he can reset the expiration date for all of those points. And there's actually a couple of ways. So just generally speaking, most of the programs that have expirations, especially the US-based programs, have a rule where if you add any miles or spend any miles, any account activity basically, you're going to reset the clock. And so just generally speaking, any activity, whether if you have a co-branded card that earns those points, you can buy a stick of gum. If you've got a bunch of miles and you don't have any way to earn new ones, you can spend a few miles, get a magazine subscription, donate some miles. Lots of ways to do it. With respect to SPG, there's actually one hack that might be easier than some of the rest. So I guess the first thing that you can do if you just want to do the simplest thing is just transfer 1,000 points. That's the minimum, so you can transfer 1,000 points out. If you are an SPG Elite, I think you can transfer fewer points than 1,000, but for most folks, the minimum is going to be 1,000. So you could transfer those to, say, American Airlines, and that would reset the points expiration. But what I recommend for Fabio is you can actually sign up for a promo with Starwood Preferred Guest where you earn 1 Starwood point for every $1 spent on Uber. And this is totally free, so if you take Uber, that's a really good way to just make sure that your Starwood points never expire. We've got a link in the show notes to the spot where you can sign up for that. And they actually give you some extra points if you're staying with Starwood. So if you happen to be at the hotel at the time that you're using Uber, you get 3 or 5 points. So it's kind of nice if you do it in combination with a stay. But even if you're not currently staying at an SPG hotel, $1, 1 point per dollar.
Wait, so you're telling me that if I'm going to get an Uber a block or two away from an SPG property, I may as well have them pick me up at the SPG property in Uber and earn some points, right?
No, it's only if you're staying. So they actually are tracking whether you have a reservation and you're currently staying.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So you don't have the pickup spot doesn't matter. You know, if you're at the Westin and you're got travel plans, you got to get somewhere in the city. As long as you're currently within the check-in, check-out of your stay, you'll get some extra points. Anyways, Fabio, best of luck with that. Definitely either 1,000 points transferred to one of the partners or sign up for that Uber promo and take a trip around the block, and you should reset that expiration. All right, so time to jump into our investigation of the new United rules. So just as a reminder, today, Wednesday the 5th, is the last day to book under the old rules. So we're going to just cover really briefly what you need to be aware of, what's going away starting tomorrow, so that if you do want to book one of the itineraries that's possible for today as the last day, you can get on making those changes. And then we're going to just dive into how the United program is going to work going forward. So first of all, the major things that are changing is, number one, the change fees for award tickets are going to be changing. The amount that they charge you, in other words, if you decide you need to cancel your ticket or you want to change your cities or dates and stuff like that. And then the other thing is the rules about what multi-city itineraries you're allowed to book. So for those of you who are wondering if you need to take action right away, The major thing with the current rules is that if you want to book a ticket that is going to start in one place and end in a different region and take advantage of stopovers and open jaws. So in other words, if you're flying from the US and you want to stop in Europe and you want to end your trip in Asia or end your trip in Africa, there's a really big advantage to booking now. The second thing is if you want to use the stopover and transit to a different region. So a really good example of this is a round the world trip. It basically costs the same amount as booking a round trip to Europe right now if you book from the US to Europe to Asia to the US. So fly all the way around.
It would be the same as a round trip to Asia.
Yep, exactly. And so that's the big thing. So if you're looking at like a round trip to Europe and you just want to stop, we're going to go over why that's still going to be possible after tomorrow. However, if you do want to do a trip that's going to touch 2 different regions, you definitely want to take a look at trying to book that ticket today.
Yeah, and when you say touch 2 different regions, you mean 2 different regions from where you left from. So if you're from the U.S., you're talking about Europe and Africa, Europe and Asia, Africa, Asia.
Yep, exactly. So I guess to start out with the new system, basically all they're doing is just saying that you can't do your stopover in one region and then carry on to a different region. So in other words, what is still going to be possible is if you're flying to Europe, for the price of a round trip, you can fly from the U.S. to, let's say, Paris, and you can have a stopover in Paris, and then you can fly from Paris to Rome and have your destination be Rome, and then Rome back to the U.S. And the place that you're getting a deal here is that you don't have to pay for the flight from Paris to Rome. Right. So in other words, if you just booked a normal ticket, you could do 2 one-way trips from the U.S. to Paris and then from Rome back home, but you'd be responsible for booking that extra flight. And so the nice thing about the United stopover is that you get that for free. It's included, same price in taxes and fees and miles.
And just to clarify, so that is for the new rules, everyone out that's listening. And United has decided to give this interesting smuggle through customs name of the Excursionist Perk, trying to make things seem much better, when in fact it's not the case. However, it's still not a bad thing. I mean, essentially what they're saying now is if you do a round trip, you get a free stopover where you're going, as long as it's international or out of your region.
Yep. So the other big thing that is changing here, and this affects a lot of trips where maybe you just have one destination. Maybe you don't have that much vacation time and you just want to visit Paris and then come back. You also are not allowed to book a stopover in the region you started. So the reason that this is really important is that there used to be, or as of today, is the last day that you can book that free one-way. So the way this would work is, let's say you live in Chicago. You fly from Chicago to Rome, spend your time in Europe, come back, fly home to Chicago. Currently, you can book a stopover in Chicago, and you can wait 6 months and then get a one-way to Hawaii. And it's basically the same price as
a free one-way
as a round trip from the U.S. to Europe. So that's not going to be available either. So the big change here, basically, you just can't have a stopover in your home region, and that means that also the stopover is now eliminated on travel that's completely domestic.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the simplest way is the new rules say you're allowed to stop over on an international round trip. For example, you go from the U.S. to Europe, you stop over in Europe, you come back to the U.S., and that's really all you can do. And then the same thing would apply if U.S. to Asia, U.S. to Africa, you get your stopover. But I think it's more important. I think it's easier to understand if we talk about what you can do as opposed to what you can't do, because it's so limited. There's really only one thing that you can do that was similar to the good old days of United.
Yep. So basically, I guess the one silver lining in this is that they are making some IT upgrades to the website. And so where previously there were a lot of different itineraries that were technically legal but required you to spend a bunch of time on the phone trying to get an agent to manually price something out that was breaking the search on the website. Now, hopefully, we're going to see with the sort of more streamlined rules around the Excursionist Perk that it'll actually be easier to book trips with stopovers without having to call United. And anybody who's had that experience knows that it's not the best time that you're going to spend. A lot of times, at least 20 minutes.
Waiting on hold is never fun, even if you're doing something else. And the final thing we need to touch on is the new award fee. So there's a couple things that have changed. Number one is the cutoff date before the pricing of your changes. So that used to be 21 days, now it's 61 days. So as they define it, if you change your travel 61 or more days out, for the general members, for people that don't have status, it's going to be $75. And if you make a change inside of 60 days, so 60 days are in, it's going to be $125. And that's a little bit different than the way it used to be, because it used to be a 21-day cutoff.
Yeah, so I mean, United's always had this two-tier thing where they charge you more if you want to change something right up before departure, and they charge you less if you give them more advance notice. So the big deal is they're just cutting off like 40 days out of your time window to do it at the cheaper price. So overall, not a massive difference. This again applies if you need to change an award ticket. So if you want to change your routing, your destination, make changes to the number of days. Also, if you just need to completely cancel your ticket, the cancel and redeposit. So United's kind of pitching this as, hey, we're simplifying, we're making things easier for you. And it is technically a little bit simpler in the sense that there are fewer different prices that are could possibly be applied. But the big deal is that you got to have way more notice to pay a lower fee. So I think the core thing here is just try and book tickets that you're relatively confident about your dates, and be aware that if you are going to make changes anytime less than 60 days, you're going to pay a higher price. So if you're kind of right at that 2-month window, you might want to make the changes before day 61.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess, in summary with everything, it's a little bit disappointing that these old rules are gone and we're dealing with some new stuff. But I mean, you hear the term market correction. That's kind of what happened here, where United was the only program allowing you to do this stuff. So it's not a huge surprise that they shut it down. And it's not like they've gotten more restrictive than American or Delta. They just kind of got in line with everyone else. It's just like using American points. You can get huge value of stuff. So people that weren't able to book before the 6th, it's not a big deal. It just means that your frequent flyer miles are kind of like the other ones now. They no longer have that little superpower of these crazy rules, with multi-city stuff.
Yeah, and don't worry, we'll find the next program with a nice little loophole for you guys to exploit. I guess the biggest thing to me with United is, and we had a lot of conversations. So we did office hours, we had a bunch of one-on-ones talking with people that were trying to book tickets, and I think we actually succeeded with a lot of really cool bookings. Hopefully on a future episode we can talk about some of these last minute bookings that came in, but the biggest message here is not the end of the world. This is not a major devaluation. Probably applies to 5 or 10% of the tickets we book with United. So if you're listening to this after the 5th, no worries, you still got plenty of value with those points. I would say at least 2.5 cents per point with United going forward, and it'll be interesting to see if there are any new loopholes that arise with the new system, ways to get extra value.
Hey, we'll see how good their IT really is.
Yeah, yes, we will. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us. Again, show notes are at abroaders.com/newunited.
Hey, Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.